In the world around us, we see amazing creatures, organisms that display complexity on a level that baffles the mind. As the scientific evidence builds, the more amazed we've become at the intricate details within biological systems. Can this complexity be reasonably explained by purely naturalistic causes, or is there a need for a designing intelligence in the origin and development of life on Earth? This series will take an in-depth look at the data and argue that standard evolutionary explanations are insufficient and that intelligence and foresight are indeed required. Welcome to Intelligent Design. According to its critics, the theory of intelligent design should be defined as the study of natural things that are too complex to have evolved. The problem with this definition is that it presents intelligent design as being a purely negative case. While we agree that there are things in nature that can't be explained by evolution, this is not a full picture. Intelligent design should be defined as the study of patterns in nature that are best explained as the result of an intelligent cause rather than an unintelligent cause. Intelligent design is an inference to intelligence as being the best explanation for certain features of the universe in general and biological complexity in particular. William Dembski says, according to intelligent design, the world contains events, objects, and structures that exhaust the explanatory resources of undirected natural causes and can be adequately explained only by recourse to intelligent causes. One interesting thing about the debate over biological origins is that nearly everyone agrees that biological organisms at least appear to be designed. According to atheist biologist Richard Dawkins, biology is the study of complicated things that give the appearance of having been designed for a purpose. There are two types of causes that we have experience with: unintelligent or natural causes and intelligent causes. Intelligent design realizes that there is a way to tell the difference between these types of causes. Intelligent causes can leave behind certain distinctive traits that are empirically detectable. If we discover something that can be explained purely by reference to known activities in nature, then there is no need to invoke intelligence. However, if we discover something that bears properties that are only known to be produced by an intelligent cause, then it is reasonable to explain it as the product of intelligence. Darwinists believe that natural selection acting on random mutation has the ability to give biological organisms the appearance of design without them actually being designed. Evolutionary biologist Francisco Ayala says, the functional design of organisms and their features would seem to argue for the existence of a designer. It was Darwin's greatest accomplishment, however, to show that the directive organization of living beings can be explained as the result of a natural process, natural selection, without any need to resort to a creator or other external agent. Design theorists believe that the neo-Darwinian mechanism cannot actually account for the level of biological complexity that we observe in living organisms. Intelligent design sees the design in biology as actual rather than illusory. A key feature of intelligent design is that it holds an open philosophy of science. This means that we reject methodological naturalism, the idea that only physical or natural explanations can be invoked. Instead, the open philosophy of science allows one to consider the full range of possible explanations, both unintelligent and intelligent. There are at least two serious problems with methodological naturalism. First, there's simply no good reason for accepting it.
The problem with methodological materialism is that, first of all, there's no good justification for it that's been formulated. It's a completely arbitrary rule that's been imposed on science. Some have said, well, only materialistic explanations count as science because only materialistic explanations invoke observable entities, and all scientific theories must invoke only observable entities. But it turns out that lots and lots of good scientific theories don't invoke observable entities. The fundamental forces of physics are not observable. Elementary particles are not observable. In the debate about biological origins, the past mutational events or transitional intermediate forms that Darwin posited as part of his explanation for why life looks the way it does now are not observable.
The second problem is that it's arbitrarily only applied to biology. Think of all the other areas where intelligent causes are considered legitimate explanations. If archaeologists discover pottery, arrowheads, or hieroglyphics, no one insists that these artifacts must be explained by purely natural causes like wind, water, and erosion. Instead, we realize that no known natural cause can account for the origin of these artifacts, while intelligence can. Another example would be a homicide. Police assume that they can tell when someone died as the result of natural causes and when someone died as the result of an intelligent agent. So if intelligence can be detected in the fields of archaeology, forensics, and virtually every other discipline, why should biology be the exception? Stephen Meyer and Paul Nelson explain, there is strong affirmative reason to reject methodological naturalism, namely that it hinders the truth-seeking function of science by forcing scientists to reject the possibility that a creative intelligence played a discernible role in the origin and history of life, even before experience can freely testify. Methodological naturalism gives nothing to scientists but intellectual bondage and limited options. Remember, I'm not currently arguing that intelligent design is present in biological organisms. I'm just saying that there's no reason to rule out that explanation in advance. There are numerous arguments against the validity of intelligent design. These arguments are attempts to shut intelligent design down before the debate even begins. Thus, before examining if there are signs of intelligence in biological structures, it is necessary to clear the ground by answering these preliminary objections. One of the most common objections to intelligent design is that it is creationism in disguise. It charges that intelligent design is just dressed up biblical creationism. This charge is patently false on numerous counts. One major difference is that intelligent design doesn't care how old the Earth is. While most forms of creationism insist on a young Earth, most proponents of intelligent design are able to accept the standard age of the Earth. Stephen Meyer points out, intelligent design is an age-neutral theory that does not take a position on the interpretation of the Book of Genesis or the age of the Earth. Another difference is the starting points. Whereas biblical creationism begins with a literal reading of the Bible and tries to explain away any scientific data that conflicts with it, intelligent design begins with the scientific evidence and makes inferences to an intelligent cause based on what we know intelligent causes are capable of. Paul Nelson explains,
creationism properly understood begins with the Bible and says, how can I fit the Bible into the data of science? Intelligent design doesn't do that. Intelligent design is the study of patterns in nature that are best explained as a result of intelligence.
Another major criticism is that intelligent design is not falsifiable. In other words, there is no way to prove that intelligent design is not the best explanation. This is a curious claim indeed. Intelligent design is very falsifiable. All the critics of the theory need to do is demonstrate that naturalistic or unintelligent forces can bring about things like DNA, molecular machines, irreducibly complex microorganisms, fundamentally new body structures, and other examples of things that design theorists use as evidence for intelligent design theory. In fact, it is Darwinian evolution that is nearly impossible to falsify. Darwinists can always claim that there has not been enough time, or that we have not conducted enough experiments, or that the fossil record is too incomplete to give evidence for evolution. Michael Behe explains,
intelligent design is very open to falsification. I claim, for example, that the bacterial flagellum could not be produced by natural selection. It needed to be deliberately, intelligently designed. Well, all a scientist has to do to prove me wrong is to take a bacterium without a flagellum, or knock out the genes for the flagellum in a bacterium, go into his lab and grow that bug for a long time, and see if it produces anything resembling a flagellum. If that happened, intelligent design, as I understand it, would be knocked out of the water. Now, I certainly don't expect it to happen, but it's easily falsified by a series of such experiments. Now let's turn that around and ask, how do we falsify the contention that natural selection produced the bacterial flagellum? If that same scientist went into the lab and knocked out the bacterial flagellum genes and grew the bacterium for a long time and nothing much happened, well, he'd say, well, maybe we didn't start with the right bacterium. Maybe we didn't wait long enough. Maybe we need a bigger population. And it would be very much more difficult to falsify the Darwinian hypothesis.
Many critics of intelligent design point to examples of allegedly poor design. Sam Harris says, nature offers no compelling evidence for an intelligent designer and countless examples of unintelligent design. A common example is the human eye, which is supposedly wired backwards. The first problem with this criticism is that it forgets that poor design is still design. Even if something is designed poorly, it was still designed by a cause that possessed some level of intellect. Second, those who make this argument assume there is really such a thing as optimal design. However, this is not true. Consider a laptop computer. One may object that it is poorly designed because the screen is too small. However, the small screen may make it perfect for travel. Likewise, a laptop with a large screen uses more power and drains the battery faster, and that could also be said to be poorly designed. Designers have to make compromises in some areas for a better overall effect. These are called trade-offs. To return to the human eye, no one has ever demonstrated how it could be designed any better without hindering the speed, sensitivity, or resolution. The eye could very easily be an intelligent designer's best possible option. William Dembski reminds us, there's also an irony here worth noting. The very visual stem that is supposed to be so poorly designed and that no self-respecting designer would have constructed is nonetheless good enough to tell us the eye is inferior. We study the eye by means of the eye. Perhaps the most common objection to intelligent design is that it commits a God of the gaps fallacy. A God of the gaps fallacy is a type of argument from ignorance. It is fallacious because it argues for God on the basis of something we do not know. For example, if lightning strikes, someone could say, I don't know what caused the lightning, so God must have done it. Clearly, this conclusion is not warranted. However, intelligent design is not based on what we do not know, but rather it is based on what we do. As an example, consider Stephen Meyer's argument for design based on DNA. Meyer points out that DNA contains information, and information is only known to come from an intelligent mind. Therefore, it is most reasonable to attribute the information present in DNA to an intelligent mind.
And the reason that intelligent design provides a good scientific explanation for the origin of the new information necessary to build new proteins and new forms of animal life is that we know from our experience that information always arises from an intelligent source. Whether we're looking at hieroglyphic inscription or a paragraph in a book or information in a section of software code, or even information embedded in a radio signal. Whenever we see information and we trace it back to its source, it always comes to a mind, not an undirected material process.
This is not an argument from ignorance. Meyer goes on to say, arguments from ignorance make an obvious logical error. They omit a necessary kind of premise, a premise providing positive support for the conclusion, not just negative evidence against an alternative conclusion. The case for intelligent design as an inference to the best explanation does not omit that necessary type of premise. Thus, it does not commit the fallacy. Finally, we turn to the all-too-common objection that intelligent design is religion in disguise. This is an odd charge since proponents of intelligent design include agnostics, Jews, Muslims, and Christians. We may well wonder which religion is being disguised. This objection confuses the implications of the theory with the theory itself. Are there significant religious implications from intelligent design? Probably so, but the theory is not based on a religious premise. Intelligent design is based on scientific evidence, from which we make inferences to intelligent causation. William Dembski sums this up well. Let's be clear that the opposition of design theorists to Darwinian theory rests in the first instance strictly on scientific grounds. Yes, we are interested in and frequently write about the theological and cultural implications of Darwinism's imminent demise and replacement by intelligent design. But the only reason we take seriously such implications is because we are convinced that Darwinism is, on its own terms, an oversold and overreaching scientific theory. Now, I have not yet argued that intelligent design actually exists in biological organisms. I'll explore that in further videos. But before we can examine the specific evidence for intelligent design, it is necessary to clear the ground of these preliminary objections. Now that these objections have been removed, we will be in a better position to see God's creative hand.